the Guardian removed his armor, and the other guards followed suit. Even the most mysterious pharaoh revealed his true face, and unexpectedly, under the mask was a youthful face. He was the god of human origin, who had lived for 10,000 years. To achieve immortality, he transferred his soul into the bodies of primitive humans, thereby extending his unending life. Although the human body was fragile, it was easier to control and repair. To facilitate the transfers, he built pyramids on other planets and transported primitive humans there to serve him, proclaiming himself as the supreme sun god. However, as Earth's civilization rapidly advanced, the enslaved people rose up in rebellion and toppled the Stargate, burying it to prevent the evil sun god from ever returning to Earth. However, the peace did not last long. An American archaeologist, Professor Langford, arrived in Egypt in search of treasure and accidentally unearthed a massive metal ring buried deep underground, along with what appeared to be ancient fossils dating back thousands of years. His daughter, Catherine, found a strange golden pendant at the site. No one knew what the giant metal ring with strange runes represented, but it was certain that the people of that time definitely did not have the ability to smelt metal. The US military quickly sealed off the site and transported the metal ring to an underground base for secret research. Decades passed, and scientists could only decipher that the symbols bore some resemblance to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, yet they could not fully decode the meaning, until the person in charge sought out a history professor named Daniel. He had a unique perspective on ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and the origins of civilization, and he had even boldly claimed that the pyramids were not of human origin. Upon seeing the mysterious symbols on the stone disk for the first time, Daniel was ecstatic, and with just a few strokes, he solved the mystery that had puzzled scientists for decades. Though he successfully interpreted the meaning of the symbols, several more complex signs on the Stargate left Daniel at a loss. One night, while stepping outside to fetch water, Daniel inadvertently saw a newspaper in the hands of a guard, which led him to realize that those complex symbols actually formed a complete map of the galaxy. The next morning, the military convened an emergency meeting. Daniel boldly speculated that the true purpose of the Stargate was to open a passage for interstellar travel, with 7 coordinates arranged to form a route. However, due to damage to the stone disk, Daniel had only found 6 coordinates, with the most crucial ones still missing. The military's top brass, impressed by Daniel's apparent talent, decided to show him the base's biggest secret. As the sealed windows slowly opened, a real Stargate appeared before Daniel. The Stargate, dormant for thousands of years, was reactivated, and Daniel successfully found the 7th coordinate. With this crucial information, the staff immediately entered the 7 coordinates into the computer. As each coordinate was locked in, the ring began to spin faster and faster, and everyone was filled with anticipation for what would happen next. At this point, the head of security had already sounded the red alarm and evacuated all personnel. When the final coordinate was activated, a magnificent portal of light suddenly appeared and was swiftly pulled backward by a mysterious force, leaving everyone in shock. It was clear that a passage to another galaxy had been opened, and the unusual fluctuations were due to the crossing of different dimensions. To be cautious, they first sent a probe vehicle through the Stargate to investigate, but just moments after entering the Stargate, the probe's signal abruptly cut off. Based on the trajectory captured just before the probe disappeared, scientists were astonished to find that the probe had been instantly transported to a distant point in the known universe. At that moment, the Stargate lost its fluctuations as well. It turned out that the general, concerned about attracting the attention of advanced civilizations, decided to temporarily shut down the Stargate. To uncover the situation, Daniel volunteered to go through and investigate. Since someone was willing to volunteer, the general was more than willing to accept. He assigned Colonel Jack to lead an armed team to escort them. Before departure, Catherine gave Daniel the solar pendant that had been unearthed with the Stargate, hoping it would protect him and ensure his safe return. Jack stood before the newly reactivated Stargate, his face serious, and then resolutely stepped through, followed cautiously by the others. Daniel was the only one who looked relaxed. The moment he stuck his head in the Stargate, the human body was disassembled into a molecular state, and after a dizzying journey through space-time, they were reconstituted back into human form. Upon reaching their destination, they found themselves inside a dimly lit structure. The soldiers, fully armed, advanced cautiously, but encountered no danger along the way. But when they stepped outside and turned around, they were astonished to find that the structure looked exactly like the pyramids on Earth. After collecting a few simple geological samples, Jack prepared to lead everyone back. However, Daniel pointed out that this Stargate was different from the one on Earth, and he couldn't obtain the coordinates needed to return. Left with no other choice, they set up camp at the site. However, when no one was around, Jack took the opportunity to return to the temple alone and secretly planted a powerful nuclear bomb inside. Meanwhile, Daniel, unaware of this, wandered around and seemed to have made a new discovery. In the desolate desert, he found a series of strange pits, resembling the footprints of a large creature, climbing a hill. Daniel spotted an alien creature that looked remarkably like a camel, with a harness around its neck, clearly domesticated by someone. Excited, Daniel called out to Jack and the others who were approaching. Unfortunately, his loud voice startled the alien creature, causing it to panic. The fallen harness on the ground accidentally caught Daniel's foot. Fortunately, being dragged through the soft desert sand only left Daniel frightened and unconscious. By the time Jack and the others caught up with large strides, Daniel had already woken up under the licking of the mastage. Jack was about to breathe a sigh of relief when he witnessed an astonishing sight. In the depths of the desert, countless alien natives were hard at work mining, and what was even more surprising was that they looked identical to Earth's humans. The armed team cautiously approached, with Daniel attempting to communicate with the alien natives. But when the natives saw the solar pendant on Daniel's chest, they all fearfully knelt down. Though puzzled, the group at least knew the natives meant no harm. Jack stepped forward to help up a kneeling boy, trying to show goodwill, but the boy screamed and ran away in fear. Brown took out an instrument to analyze the minerals the natives were mining, finding them to be identical to the material of the Stargate. It was baffling how a seemingly primitive civilization could create such advanced technology. As they pondered this, the boy returned with the tribe's leader, Kasuf. Although they couldn't understand each other's language, Daniel sensed the leader's goodwill and offered him a chocolate bar to break the ice.
Yarabepio? Baniwe.
In return, Kasuf graciously offered the group a precious gift of water brought by a few graceful women. Kasuf warmly invited Daniel and his group to the native settlement. There, they saw a high-hanging solar totem. Finally understanding why the natives revered Daniel, it turned out that the pendant Daniel carried with him and the totem they worshipped were both symbols of the sun god. They had mistaken Daniel and his companions for messengers of the god. Just then, a sudden horn blast echoed, and the natives quickly shut the gates of the settlement in a panic. Jack misunderstood the situation and thought they had been set up. In a fit of anger, he grabbed a few natives as hostages and began to use force against the crowd. Kasuf rushed over to explain, but the language barrier made communication impossible. Thankfully, Skyra had a clever idea and gestured for Jack to follow him to a high vantage point. When they reached the high ground, they saw a massive sandstorm bearing down on the tribe. Realizing his mistake, Jack immediately ordered the soldiers to release the hostages and sincerely apologized to Kasuf. Due to the impending sandstorm, Daniel and the others had no choice but to stay with the tribe. Kasuf warmly welcomed them and offered them the tribe's most delicious food. Daniel took a piece, sniffed it, found it acceptable, and boldly took a bite. It tasted like chicken.
Tastes good.
After eating and drinking their fill, Daniel took out the pendant he was carrying and drew the ancient Egyptian symbol for the sun in the sand. Before he could finish, Kasuf hurriedly erased it and raised his hands, signaling everyone to keep their distance. It was clear that writing was forbidden on this planet. Daniel thought he couldn't get any useful information from the natives. But soon, things took an unexpected turn. To show respect for the divine envoy, Kasuf offered his beautiful daughter, Shayuri, to Daniel. Seeing Shayuri about to undress, Daniel quickly stepped in to stop her and escorted her out. However, Kasuf, waiting outside, thought Daniel was rejecting Shayuri and immediately knelt in apology. Trembling with fear, with no other choice, Daniel reassured him that he was pleased and brought Shayuri back inside. Undeterred, Daniel writes down the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics again, but Shayuri, like Kasuf, is afraid to look at them. Daniel felt disheartened, unsure of what to do next, but when he turned back around, he was surprised to see that Shayuri had responded by drawing the coordinates representing Earth on the ground. Daniel was overjoyed. If Shayuri could draw the coordinates, she must have seen these symbols somewhere. He eagerly asked Shayuri to show him the place. Shayuri soon led Daniel to a cave. This cave was a forbidden place for the native people, its walls covered with murals and hieroglyphs that detailed the planet's history. Daniel explained the mythical content to Jack, who had followed them. Before the origin of humanity, A traveler from a distant star fled a dying planet, with his body aging and his entire race facing extinction. In search of immortality, he explored the galaxy. He arrived on Earth, teeming with life, and encountered primitive humans. He discovered that, despite their fragility, human bodies were easily controlled and repaired. So he transferred his soul into a human boy, gaining eternal life. He used the boy's body to become the leader of the primitive humans and proclaimed himself the supreme sun god. The native tribes on this planet were slaves that he transported using the Stargate to mine resources. Subsequently, Daniel found a stone tablet in the cave that recorded the coordinates for the Stargate, but due to its age, the seventh coordinate was severely worn away. Just as they saw a glimmer of hope for returning home, it was shattered once again. The group had no choice but to head back to camp and plan their next move. Unbeknownst to them, as the sandstorm approached, a pyramid-shaped spaceship quietly landed on the planet. The few team members left at the camp had no time to react before they were attacked by a mysterious force. Their attackers were identical to the alien guards depicted in the murals. When Jack and the others rushed back, they saw the alien spaceship hovering above the pyramid from a distance. Upon entering, they found the interior in chaos. It was clear that a fierce battle had taken place. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Jack quickly went to the location where the weapons were hidden, only to find the nuclear bomb missing. Just then, the mechanism above them activated, and rows of smaller rings descended vertically. As the rings retracted, a guard wearing a bronze mask was transported to this place. Facing the overwhelming firepower of the unknown enemy, Daniel and Jack reluctantly put down their weapons. They were then taken to the ship's upper hall, where the alien guards roughly forced them to kneel. As the massive bronze doors slowly opened, the Supreme Sun God, accompanied by numerous followers, entered the hall. Two guards brought forth a powerful weapon. It was the nuclear bomb that Jack had been searching for. It turned out that Jack had a secret mission. If he encountered an unstoppable danger, he was to detonate the nuclear bomb to destroy the Stargate, preventing unknown disasters from reaching Earth. At the Sun God's gesture, the guardian standing beside him removed his armor, followed by the other guards. Then, the most mysterious Sun God finally revealed his true face. To their astonishment, beneath the mask was the face of a young boy. Seeing that the so-called deity was merely a mortal, Jack, kneeling on the ground, immediately decided to resist. However, R.A., seated high on his throne, remained unperturbed, confident that mere mortals like Jack and Daniel could never defeat a supreme god. As expected, within moments, Jack and Daniel were effortlessly subdued. The audacious Jack wasn't executed. Instead, he was thrown into a water cell where the missing soldiers were also imprisoned. Clearly, they had other plans for him. Daniel, who was supposed to have met certain death, unexpectedly survived due to the pendant he carried. When the severely injured Daniel awoke from his dream, he was shocked to find that the wound in his abdomen had disappeared. It seemed that the sarcophagus he lay upon had the ability to heal his body. As Daniel looked around, he inadvertently found himself in Ra's quarters. During their conversation, Daniel learned that his resurrection was entirely due to the solar pendant he carried. Since the natives regarded him as a messenger, R.A. intended for him to execute Jack and the others as a way to intimidate and control the population. But Ra's cruelty didn't stop there. He declared that he had created human civilization 10,000 years ago. And now, with humans bringing a nuclear bomb to destroy him, Earth would face the wrath of a god. Facing the threat to Earth's existence, Daniel had no choice but to comply for the moment. To further intimidate the natives, R.A. decided to punish them before the execution ceremony. He dispatched 2 fighter jets to the native settlement to carry out an indiscriminate attack on the people below. After a brutal bombing, the jets retracted their weapons. After all, they still needed these slaves to mine the ore. They believed this punishment would instill even greater fear among the natives, unaware that it had instead ignited the anger of the young people in the tribe. The next day, at the execution ceremony, R.A. smugly accepted the slaves' worship. R.A. ordered Daniel to publicly execute his companions, demonstrating the god's supreme authority. But what R.A. didn't expect was that the humans he regarded as mere insects had already developed a will to resist. Skyra used light refraction to signal Daniel on the high platform and revealed a hidden weapon. Quick to understand, Daniel turned his gun and began to fight back, with the crowd joining the battle. A fierce conflict erupted. However, the alien technology's weapons were extremely powerful, and the natives were quickly scattered. Jack and his group used the cover of the sandstorm to escape their pursuers, successfully making it to a cave. Although their initial clash ended in failure, it was the first step towards freedom, and everyone felt a sense of exhilaration. Skyra, no longer afraid, began to carve the forbidden symbols into the wall to commemorate their brave act. Daniel stepped forward to take a closer look. After carefully inspecting the markings, he picked up a stone and completed the missing symbol. To his astonishment, he realized it was the missing 7th coordinate. The soldiers are happy to know that they can return home, but Jack is still frowning. The nuclear bomb, crucial to Earth's fate, was still in Ra's possession. Once assembled, it would inflict catastrophic damage on humanity. The next day, the group disguised themselves and successfully killed the soldiers guarding the slaves. Kasuf, shocked by their bold action, fell to his knees, but what he saw next left him even more stunned. Who would have thought that the so-called gods who had enslaved the natives for thousands of years were just ordinary mortals? With Kasuf no longer in their way, the group disguised themselves as slaves transporting minerals and infiltrated the pyramid. Unexpectedly, the alien guards were highly vigilant and insisted on checking each slave. A fierce battle broke out immediately. Outside the pyramid, the human team tried to storm in for a decisive fight but were locked out by the cunning guards. Then, the guards deployed 2 fighters to bombard the slaves outside the pyramid mercilessly. Amidst the chaos, Jack reached the location of the nuclear bomb. Without hesitation, he activated the timer. With only 7 minutes left, Jack instructed Daniel to lead the group back to Earth while he stayed behind to ensure the bomb's detonation. But just then, enemy reinforcements arrived. Shayuri, unable to dodge in time, was shot and fatally wounded. Although Daniel managed to kill the alien guard in retaliation, Shayuri was already lifeless. Suddenly, the portal opened unexpectedly. A grief-stricken Daniel remembered the sarcophagus that could heal the body and immediately carried Shayuri into the portal. As soon as Daniel left, a fully armed squad of guards teleported in, catching Jack off guard and landing a heavy blow. After a few rounds, the guards had the upper hand. Meanwhile, the sarcophagus successfully revived Shayuri. Daniel quickly picked her up, intending to use the portal to return, but they were stopped by Ra, who appeared out of nowhere. At that critical moment, Jack began to gain the upper hand. Using his strength, he overpowered the enemy and discovered the device to activate the portal in his opponent's possession. The portal was activated, killing the guards who couldn't escape in time. Daniel took the opportunity to retrieve the pendant and slipped into the portal, leaving amidst Ra's furious screams. The battle inside temporarily came to a halt. Breathing a sigh of relief, Jack decided to deactivate the bomb. However, he discovered it had been tampered with and could no longer stop the detonation. Outside, under Kasuf's leadership, the people had won their battle. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Ra quickly piloted his ship to escape, planning to return one day to slaughter all the rebellious slaves. Hearing the commotion, Daniel and the others looked up, then glanced at the severed guard's arm on the ground and immediately hatched a plan. By then, the spaceship had entered deep space, and the internal portal suddenly opened. The soon-to-explode nuclear bomb was transported inside, ending Ra's corrupt and evil existence moments later. After thousands of years of enslavement, the people finally gained their freedom, and cheers echoed across the entire planet. Having completed their mission, Jack and the others prepared to return to Earth, while Daniel chose to stay and impart knowledge and technology to the people.